Everybody to the council meeting of Tuesday, 19th of December 2023. My name's Matthew Bristol and I'm the mayor. To start the official proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting in Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media on YouTube. We have no apologies or leave of absences. Everybody's present. Any councillors have a declaration of conflict of interest, please? Councillor Neil.
We've got a general conflict at 9.3.2.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. First, before I start going into the proceedings, I'd just like to acknowledge a couple of ex-mayors, Bronwyn and councillors, Bronwyn Mashin and Jim Norris, who I see over there, and also Councillor Max Lesser. Thank you, as councillor. Thanks, Max. Thanks, Bronwyn and Jim. Good to see you all. Confirmation of minutes 4.1 meeting of council. Do I have a mover of the minutes, please? Rosie?
Yes. I'll move the motion as stated.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Henderson. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Our first item is 5.1, which is acknowledgements, and I'd like to acknowledge Martin Shattuck. Martin, good to see you again. I'd like to acknowledge Martin Shattuck, who's the manager, Castlemaine Community House. Martin Shattuck, manager of Castlemaine Community House, will be finishing his role tomorrow, 20th of December, after 11 years of service. Council would like to acknowledge and thank Martin for his significant support and contribution that he has provided during this time. Martin has led a range of initiatives and also partnered with council on projects that have improved outcomes for many individuals and groups within the community. Martin has been instrumental in the support and provision of Castlemaine community lunches, including the support of Malden Neighbourhood House and Malden Community Lunches during this time. Additionally, Martin has supported and advocated for many initiatives, including successful grant funding for the universal access at Castlemaine Community House for the installation of a ramp and chairlift. In partnership with council, supported the running of the Mondo Lounge as a youth program for many of our young people in the Shire. Strong supporter of grassroots initiatives and projects that were auspiced by Castlemaine Community House as part of the the council's community grant applications. Supported advocacy to the Mount Alexander Shire Disability Advocacy Group, particularly his involvement in the collaborative project between council and MASDAG in preparing people with disabilities for emergencies. Also been instrumental support provided as a member of the Mount Alexander Shire COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Committee, where the food pantry and similar initiatives were born, which now forms the Mount Alexander Shire Connectors program. Advocacy and support for people experiencing homelessness, support for the social prescribing project and the launch of the Get Connected program, platform. Coordination of Castlemaine Pride, installation of the flagpoles and LGBTQIA+ and Aboriginal flag at Castlemaine Community House, and one of the inaugural members of the LGBTQI Roundtable in 2018. And also facilitation and support to Murnong Mummers. Martin's principles of social justice and commitment to community will leave a long-lasting legacy for council and for our community. The care, compassion and advocacy efforts undertaken by Martin are very much appreciated, and we all thank you, Martin. Martin. I also have a statement of thanks, Martin, from the Honourable Marie Edwards MP, Member for Bendigo West and Speaker of the Legislative Assembly Parliament of Victoria. Congratulations, Martin, on your outstanding contribution to our community as the manager of the Castlemaine Community House. You have led the delivery of many extraordinary programs for residents in our Shire, particularly for those needing extra support. Your compassion, empathy, and ability to bring people together will be deeply missed. It's been a pleasure to work with you. All the very best as you embark on your next journey. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Now, don't go. Do you want to say a few words? I'll put you on the spot.
Is that okay?
Absolutely. I run the show, so you can do it.
There's actually so many people I would like to thank because we don't do this alone. And it's not just people, but it's different organisations, particularly the Alexander Shire Council, and too many people amongst the council to even to this, but there are some incredible people and they know who they are. And I've thanked them over the last few weeks. But also other organisations, Delkaya and Chirp before that, the library, and various schools that we've worked with over the years. We've done some pretty amazing stuff, and I'm actually very proud of what we've achieved as a community house over the last 11 years. It was a pretty amazing community house when I joined it 11 years ago, and I'd like to thank Ron Moore, who was the previous manager, who I think was with the community house for 20 years. So he lasted longer than I did. But it's an incredible community, and it's a fabulous community to work with. And I think we've done a lot and really appreciate all of the support that I've had along the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. To you. First of all, acknowledgement of the achievement. Been a pleasure working with you. Thank you. There's that.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
It's all with my partner, so I don't kill it.
No problem. I don't, I'll be down here.
Yep, I'm sure.
Maybe,
Down here?
yeah.
Just down the front of it. Yes, no problem. Okay, so the next item is item 6, public time. Could I ask for a suspension of standing orders, please?
So moved.
Second, Harry, all those in favour? Thank you. Now, we've got a few questions tonight. So first, I just want to speak about a few rules that we have in the chamber. But generally, be limited to one question and allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Would you please extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which we operate? You shall take direction from myself as chair, and whoever I call as a speaker to do so. You shall not attempt to enter into a discussion or debate with council. However, councillors may ask a question of clarification of the speaker. The public question time is minuted, so if you could state your name clearly, state if you are representing a group or organisation, and state a few words of what you wish to raise. And I just want you to note, as chair, I may cease or reject a question deemed unacceptable under clause 1.6 of the Governance Rule 20. If so, I will advise the speaker on the basis for the decision if deemed necessary. Okay. Okay, so I've got a couple of written questions first. And I see some of the people who have written questions are here. So, Bill, would you like to speak or can you read this?
Can I speak?
Yeah, go to the lectern, that's fine, thank you.
Well, thanks, Matt and councillors and staff for letting me speak tonight. I was last year in September, and the issue I was concerned about then was graffiti. You may not know it. I think you're probably aware that since September, in the past 3 months, there's been an explosion of new graffiti in the township. Been a deluge of new graffiti in the township. The good news is that 2 weeks ago, the police arrested and charged two 17-year-olds for their activities. And they've been very active, so they're out of action for the time being. You may know that earlier this year, there were two people aged in their 30s who were arrested and charged, who will be taken to court in September because of their violence of the graffiti ordinance. So that's the good news. We've got 4 people out of action, but there's still plenty out there who are waiting for another opportunity. I think they'll probably pull their heads in for a while, but they'll keep a low profile. I think it's important to note that the 4 people who have been arrested and charged were apprehended entirely because they were caught on security camera. Without the visible evidence, the police could not have caught them and charged them. I've spoken to the police officers in charge of that. The bad news is that the graffiti, which they've pushed all over our township, is still there. So how are we going to get rid of it? We've got a lovely, historically appreciative town, and it's marred by this ugly graffiti. So the reason why I've come here tonight is to ask, what can we do to get rid of this graffiti? Now, when I spoke in September, I was allowed 3 questions. I've actually got I've got 4 questions, Matt. I hope you'll let me use them anyway, but because I didn't realize I was limited just to one.
You've got a minute to go, Bill, I'm sorry, so you better ask those questions in a minute.
So my questions relate to one angle of how we can use the $60,000, which was allocated for graffiti abatement in the Shire this financial year. So how much of the $60,000 will be spent on the part-time graffiti officer position? Will this officer be empowered to get graffiti removed from the many sites around Castlemaine where it still exists? Will this position extend beyond the remaining 6 months of the current financial year? And will this anti-graffiti funding be rolled over to the next financial year, considering that MASC still has a long way to go to solve this problem? And if it's not to be rolled over, why not? And by the way, if anybody hasn't had a chance to walk the streets and see the graffiti, I've got a huge folio of new graffiti that I can show you if you want to know just the damage that they've done to our township.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Spot on, well timed. Now, we've got a couple of graffiti questions, so what I might do is get others to come up and ask their question, and then I'll get the director of infrastructure to answer those. So, David, do you want to speak to your question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Touched on a couple of the things that I was going to raise, so I'll skip over those. My name's David Dean. I live in Harcourt North. Often when we meet new people down in Melbourne and they ask where I live, I tell them that I live in Harcourt. They say, well, where the heck is that? And I say, well, it's an outer suburb of Castlemaine. Quite proudly so. And of course, everybody knows where beautiful Castlemaine is. Recently, I had family over from Canada, and we took them for a tour around the place, particularly around this beautiful city. And my cousin said to me she was quite shocked by some of the stuff that she saw in terms of graffiti and some of the foul language that she was confronted with. And she said to me, how come your council accepts this? It's just everywhere. I was lost for words, quite frankly. I've been a CEO, and I know that if it isn't high on the agenda as far as the CEO is concerned, then the troops aren't going to treat it as seriously as you would like them to do so. Hence my question, and I'll read the question as I sent it in. Please advise exactly what involvement our CEO has in attacking the anti-graffiti effort in our city. The online version of the December Shire News does not mention graffiti, suggesting it has a low priority. Now, that may be unfair, but I read that very carefully to see if there was any mention of the disgraceful graffiti that faces our beautiful city. We're halfway through the financial year, but I have no idea how much of the $60,000 that I heard Bill talking about has been spent, nor any idea on what it has been spent. So I would appreciate sort of receiving some information about that. And my third point is, will council commit to giving ratepayers regular updates on what is being done to counter our ongoing defacement, the ongoing defacement of our beautiful city? I think ratepayers have a right to transparency, and I look forward to more information being available in due course and communication to the public. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Are there any other questions on the graffiti from the floor? Thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to read out Ian Braden's question?
Mr. Braden asked that, can the council describe the role that the Mount Alexander Shire Council CEO has had and continues to have in the anti-graffiti effort? What is the specific role of the graffiti officer? We're halfway through the financial year. How much of the $60,000 graffiti action fund has been spent to date, and what has it been spent on? Will the council commit to giving ratepayers regular updates on what's being done to counter the graffiti problem, for example, via the online Shire news, email, or in the local newspapers? Ratepayers will appreciate transparency and accountability in the Shire's allocation of the anti-graffiti funds.
Councillor Henderson. As Ian, Bill and David would know, I'm sympathetic to the graffiti situation. The council has responded to similar public questions at multiple council meetings this year, and we will not be responding to similar questions in the future. Having said that, though, I'd like to move over to Director Anir to answer some of the questions that you've asked tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll. So I will respond to those collective questions in one response. Firstly, I'd just like to highlight that council takes the issue of graffiti quite seriously, as Mayor Driscoll has just mentioned, and this has been acknowledged through the endorsement of a graffiti management policy throughout this year, as well as making a budget allocation for the current financial year to address some of the issues. So while the CEO may be the highest authority with regard to the officers, the council is the highest authority for council and has made that decision and has shown their commitment to that issue. With regard to some of the other points, the graffiti officer will coordinate graffiti reporting, removal, prevention activities undertaken by council teams. The graffiti officer will liaise with private property owners, community groups and volunteers and other public authorities to collectively address incidents of graffiti within the Mount Alexander Shire. As mentioned on previous occasion, council has limited authority for non-council assets to take action in the removal of graffiti and needs to work with others to achieve that outcome. As such, the officer will coordinate across the council teams for the removal of graffiti on council assets only. We only have that authority to remove graffiti on council assets. We need to work with private property owners, with other public authorities, and other asset owners to have the removal of graffiti from other assets. And many of those are the notable ones that our friends, relatives from Canada have identified. The possible extension of the role will be determined based on operational needs and budget availability at the time of the year, and that's through the budget process, which will be happening in June, between April and June of next year. And council will report on the activities we undertake in relation to graffiti management through its annual reporting platforms as well.
You do it from here. I have another question, a written question that Councillor, I don't know if you could summarise and read out, please.
Thanks, Matt. So this is from Laurel Cannock. And I'll try and summarise it, but I will read some of the opening and closing statements. I referred to my request some 8 months ago regarding the street lighting power cords attendance on the corner of Ferring and Barker Street lights. No changes or alterations have been made to levels of light or the exposure of the arc of the light falling in the private open spaces, nor have I been contacted about that matter. OH&S review of LED lighting risks to human and animal health. I give notice to the council of the OH&S matter created by inappropriate LED lights and request this to be tabled as a review issue for council to consider at next council meeting. That's what's here. So Laurel is suggesting that there has been a number of studies, mainly in America, that LED lighting possibly, or in her view, can cause endocrine disruption, obesity, depression, mental health harm to animals. Some of the outcomes from liking, and cited below because of the money from the US. And essentially, I encourage council members to take an evening walk to observe the issues for themselves. But Lauren basically feels for the LED lights, the issues.
Oh, thank you, Ted. Okay, thank you, Councillor Grant. I'd like to direct it to Director Renier to answer that, please.
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll, and thank you, Laura, for your question. I can confirm that Council has supported Laura by engaging with PowerCore on her behalf to respond to the issues that have been raised in her statement today. And this was undertaken in June of this year. We've also received a report from PowerCore that they met with Laurel in September on the site in question and discussed the issues that were at hand. And there was no action that was identified to be undertaken through that conversation. While I appreciate that there was no action undertaken at that point in time, if Laura would like her concerns addressed again, he suggested that she get back in contact with PowerCore to address those. So that they have the responsibility of setting the illumination for the LED within the street lighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Renier. Before I move to questions from the floor, I have another written question. But I think, Sarah, are you here? Did you want to, would you like me to read this one? Would you like to step at the podium and ask the question?
I can read it.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and the organisation and stand at the podium? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Eagle and I'm representing Free Pallet Farm, Central Victoria. As I'm sure you are all aware, a number of local councils, both in Victoria and around Australia, have passed motions condemning the relentless violence in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories and called for a permanent ceasefire. Is this something our council would consider or is considering? It is definitely an issue that concerns our community. There are ongoing weekly rallies that are being held on Sunday that have run for 7 weeks already. So I'm interested to know our council's position on this situation. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Sarah. I find this question exempt on the grounds that it contravenes the governance rules 2023, specifically 12.1.6. Questions and statements to council may be on any matter except if it relates to a matter outside the duties, functions and powers of the council. Thank you. So that's all the written questions we have. Is there any questions from the floor? Statements. Anybody?
Yeah.
If you can come up to the podium, thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Burgess from Taradale. I just want to speak about my question and speak about the proposed reopening of Boundary Road in Taradale. As read what's listed in the agenda about that, including some reference to the Taradale Primary School. I'm the principal at Taradale Primary School. I've spoken to Councillor Henderson about this matter, and I've also spoken with a number of families from the school who live in both Taradale and Malmesbury. From all the families I spoke to, they were all in support of the reopening of that road. The reasons they expressed for support were similar to what is listed in the agenda, being able to travel walking, riding on bikes or riding on horses along those roads, as well as also being able to travel by car. Those sort of more scenic option than travelling down the older highways, and more for tourist reasons, not for necessarily travelling to and from school, although some families do live in that part of Taradale and that area of Malmesbury. So it's actually basically what we say is expressing the interest of the people I've spoken to at the school there.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions or statements before? Jim, welcome out. You know the drill.
I'm on the wrong end of it.
Jim Norris is my name. I'm here representing myself as a resident, a long-term resident of Carradale of over 30 years, who ironically moved to Castlemaine, the Big Smoke, 3 weeks ago. But so be it. Item 9.2.1 regarding Boundary Road. I just wanted to address a few issues that are raised in the officer report and the agenda. But perhaps the first thing that I would say is that at 7:05 tonight, it will be 6 years exactly to the time and the day that the big storm came through Carradale, destroying a couple of houses, unroofing several houses, unroofing the Church of England Sunday School building, and generally creating a huge amount of damage. I can certify that. I had $250,000 worth of damage through a tree coming through the side of my house. The reason I'm raising this is that on that day, the roof came off number 16 Metcalfe Carradale Road, which is the start of Spring Creek Road, the road that joins onto Boundary Road. The roof lifted off an almost brand new house and landed across Spring Creek Road, and meant that anybody further on from there could not get out. It was just lucky that Lenny Gerben, a local earth moving contractor, had some heavy equipment, and in the dark at night moved that roof off the road. If somebody hadn't had a medical emergency, the gates were locked at Boundary Road. The road was blocked by a roof on the road. Council officers referred to flood and fire. Other things happened. As you know, and these days, with our weather patterns as they are, things are happening more often. It's just ironic that you're seeing this tonight through 6 years exactly after. A couple of the items that I'd just like to address out of the council officer report. There was a risk of it becoming a shortcut between Carradale and Malmesbury. In fact, it's a longer route between Carradale and Malmesbury if you go through Spring Creek Road, Boundary Road and Post Office Road than it is simply travelling down the highway, which of course you can do at 100 kilometres an hour. So the question of a shortcut is perhaps not that valid. There's a reference to a sharp right-hand bend. I don't know how many 90-degree bends there are in the Shire, but there would be thousands of them. It's not unusual. Heavy vehicles using the road. There would be some heavy vehicles using the road at the moment to do deliveries to farms, stock deliveries and the like. It would be impossible to get a B-double down that road, and there are bridge load limits at the Malmesbury end anyway. So this becoming a thoroughfare for trucks is just not relevant, I'm afraid.
Sorry, Jim, you've got to wind up soon.
Sorry, yep. The suggestion that the gates might be left in place and that not be locked. I'd just like to say the precedent's been set. The gates have been locked, even though the rules of the lease did say that they should be left unlocked. So, anyway, Mr. Mayor, I would commend the motion as suggested by council officers to councillors.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions from the floor or statements? Bill, you're only supposed to have one. Is this on another matter or?
I just want to apologise for not following council protocol and saying my name is Bill Wigglesworth and I represent myself. I live in Walmer and I also represent many people who've expressed outrage at graffiti in the town.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? Statements? Max, come up to the podium, please. State your name and who you are.
My name is Santa. And I got an SMS, Santa's message service, and I was told to come here. I don't know why, but I'm here with some presents because I've heard that you've done a good job this year. Is that so? Have you really been working hard?
Yes, we have.
Good. Well, I've got some presents for you. Oh, now, this is all about local government and this is about zips. And zips are open to new ideas. The talk's here about local government that works for you. So there's one about zips you can have.
Thank you.
Oh, now, Oh, clips. Training paper clips for better connections. This is what the staff needs. And the councillors. Then we have one on, PEGS, train for a rewarding career in local government. Oh, it's not all that's coming, is it? Oh, now look what I've got here. This is a nice one. You know about crossings? Council involved in crossings, are they?
Yes.
I think they are. Here's a jigsaw about crossings. Oh, there's all sorts of things you're getting here. It's a nice poster. It's been distributed. You can have that one. Let's see what else I've got here. All sorts of things. Sport. Council, what do they do? Oh, local government provides sporting and playing surfaces for your well-being. Well, here's another poster. This is the cricket one. And this is about aiming for the pegs. If you know the cricket terminology, there's a poster for you. And there's 2 card games, the cricket one, and here's a netball one as well. All about local government. See, good for you tonight. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, this. This is a local government activity box. Anything could be in here. I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. Oh, well. All right, look, kindergartens. There are a lot of kindergartens in this shire. Now, this is a true story about kindergarten. Fantastic. And there's a card game that goes with it called Kindersnap. And I think I sort of recognise a bit of a logo on that. I haven't got a clue. I don't know here, but that's something Mount Alexander Shire. But anyway, that's something for kindergartens. Oh, let's see what else we've got. Oh.
Got to wind you up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, I helped write the Realty and Extended thing. Santa doesn't come often to the Shire.
No, every year.
Tourism. Wow, working with Parks Victoria, I understand. Tourism. Thousands going in jigsaw and card games. Hope you don't mind taking over your space.
That's fine.
Oh. And this, I hear you're doing something with older people. You've made some decisions.
Yes.
Very good. So here's a jigsaw for the older residents. That's you, Bill.
Thanks.
What else? Oh, now what do we got here? Trains, more things about local government. And this is an interesting one. That's it. This is a jigsaw. How you'll be mentioned here. This is about 1914. Now, I understand briefly that there's some people here that could have relations that went back to 1914. Yes, don't look at me like that. It says through my window, I could see the mayor and councillors from our local Castlemaine borough. Now, I don't know about this, but there's the sort of a town clerk called Confuzzled Conundrum. Now, I reckon is that any relative to someone out here? No, not too sure. And right at the end, it says, oh.
I've got to wind you up. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is the important part.
Okay, couple more minutes, seconds.
It says, start your own small business. Got an idea? Get involved in your local community grants. Contact your local council. Council often facilitates small business ideas.
Great idea. Thank you very much.
There, you can have that one.
Thanks, Max.
You can play around with the jigsaw.
And thank you. Appreciate that. And council really appreciates questions in public time.
And there's another thing we've had. There's a hand for you.
Is there any other questions from the floor?
So you don't get anything for nothing.
Thank you for that. Can I have a motion to resume public questions?
So moved.
Stephen Gardner, all those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Wonderful. Item 7 is petitions and letters, which there is nil. Item 8 is committee reports. Could I have a motion from someone, please? Yes, Bill,
Oh, sorry.
the motion.
The motion is that we confirm the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee be noted.
On 24th November 2023.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is 9.1 community from officers report, 9.11, which is the North Central Goldfields Regional Library Agreement 2024. Councillor Neer, would you like to introduce this, please?
The purpose of this report is for council to resolve to enter into a revised Library Corporation agreement for 2024 with the North Central Goldfields Library Corporation. I will move the recommendation.
Councillor Neer, do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy. Any opposition? Would you like to speak to your motion?
We're a member council of the North Central Goldfields Regional Library Corporation, along with City of Greater Bendigo and the Shires of Loddon and Macedon Ranges. Each 4 years, I think, we need to do a new regional library agreement, which goes through the board first and then through the member councils, and then goes to the Minister for Local Government for approval. The last agreement was approved by the Minister for Local Government in 2019, review of the current agreement. I think importantly about this agreement, nothing has changed since the last one, but this is expected to be our final agreement before the voluntary winding up of the corporation, because it is no longer a legal way to run a library under the new Local Government Act. So before 2030, our council, with all the other councils, either alone or still in some kind of togetherness, will transition to a new type of entity and wind this one up. But for now, it will be business as usual. This is basically just taking us through the next few years while we really figure out what our next step forward will be. So yeah, you know, I love the library. I think, as always, it highlights in the report that 53% of our population are members of our local library. You know, it was asked during our briefing with the library, I think, whether it was just all the women. And I dug into that data a little bit the other day, and everyone will be pleased to know that men and women are equally represented in library membership, as well as children, which is fantastic. So I'm supportive of this and I commend it to my fellow councillors.
Councillor Neer. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the work that the North Central Goldfields Regional Library does, particularly our local library in Castlemaine. It's a wonderful organisation, and it's achieves unbelievably high levels of patronage from the community. I know it's a much loved facility, so wish all the staff a Merry Christmas and thanks for their great work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to say something? Councillor McClure?
I'll just to back up Councillor Cordy's comments, that it is a great organisation for this town, which all across the combined shires. I had a reason to go to the library recently, and to my shame, I don't use it all that well, but I couldn't believe how much of a high activity that library was. I was mildly surprised. So it is an important asset to this town, and we need to make sure it stays. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Any other councillors like to say something? Councillor Neer, would you like to write a reply?
Oh, look, just picking up on what Councillor McClure has said, I think it would be lovely if every councillor goes to the library this year and checks it out, because we will be looking towards a new form of how the Library Corporation exists, what kind of entity that will be. I think it's really important that all of us around this table get a really good sense of what the library means for our community, so that we can make a really well-informed decision. So there's plenty of different stuff. You can do philosophy, you could join a poetry club, take the grandkids along. Yeah, go and check it out, because it's going to be a really big decision for us to make down the track, and it'd be great to see you all in there. Thank you.
Councillor Neer. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Yes, the council, the library is a great place, and we often use it as a family, which is great. Item 9.1.2, which is the allocation of land at Malden and Newstead for affordable housing. Councillor Gardner, would you like to introduce this one, please?
Certainly. The purpose of this report is to seek council's approval to allocate two 49-year ground leases over 10 Steel Street Mole and 2A Hammerobot Street Newstead to Winteringham Housing Limited for the purpose of building and operating affordable rental housing for local people over 50 years old. Winteringham House Limited has committed to design, build, operate, maintain and manage affordable housing on these sites if the grant funding or other financial support is secured for construction works on both sites. Approval of the ground leases would enable Winteringham Housing Limited to commence the preparation of finance and funding applications to construct affordable rental housing at 10 Steel Street Malden and 2A Robert Street Newstead. The outcomes of the committee consultation on this matter are presented in this report, and I would like to move it as printed.
Thank you, Councillor.
We allocate the two properties to Winteringham 49 years.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Do I have a second? Councillor McClure. Is there any opposition? Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
So this before I was seeking, as I've said, to allocate 10 Steel Street Malden and 2A Cranbrook Street Newstead for purposes of social housing. That will be under the control of Winteringham Housing Limited for a period of 49 years, and at that point, obviously the council at that point will then work out what they're going to do. Part of this consideration, obviously, there was community consultation. There was 189 responses with 85% in favour of this. Noting 15% were against. Surprisingly, my community in Malden was overwhelmingly supportive of it. Most of the objections, I suppose, come from Newstead. And the issue around Newstead seems to be that it should be preserved for a future recreation reserve. And whilst I am sympathetic to their view, however, the needs of social housing overrides that. The Newstead, I believe, and we've currently upgraded lights and facilities there already. So there's good facilities in Newstead. And I also note that in 2008, when council undertook its reserve master plan across the Shire, this was not actually raised by the Newstead committee at all. So whilst there are petitions and some individual comments made, to me, the overriding priority would be for these sorts of housing. So therefore, that's why I would support, suggest my fellow councillors support it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor on the floor, would you like to speak to the motion, or would you ever like to speak?
Not really, Mr. Mayor, only to say support, I think Stephen or Councillor has said it all. It's an important project. I commend our CEO and our housing solutions broker, Claire, for the work that they've done on this project. It's an important project for the Shire. It's an important project for the people that need these houses, and we need to do more of it. This is a start, and we've still got a long way to go. But I do commend our councillor to support this initiative, because I think it's an important initiative, the first step to get some solutions to our housing issues in the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCoy. Any other councillors like to say something? Councillor Cordy.
Yes, I'd just like to acknowledge that it's a fantastic project, and you know, we've really been wanting to do something in affordable housing for a long time, and the Winteringham Housing Group, a very professional group, and I'm sure they're going to attract the right funding mixed for this project. So wish them well with that, but it's going to be fantastic for all of our community actually, and I think it's going to be an excellent project. So hopefully the funding for the construction works will be forthcoming very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to say something? No? Okay, so we have a motion, it's been seconded. Sorry. Councillor Gardner, you have a right, of reply.
Well, everyone's agreed, but that's okay. Look, I mean, it is, I think what Councillor McClure and Cordia said, it is an important project and it's a first start, hopefully, that we can see, some housing for people who can stay in our shine, and yeah, it's good.
Thank you. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9.1.3, which is the appointment of new Community Asset Committee members. Councillor Henson, can I get you to introduce this, please?
In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, a special meeting council on September 2020, council established community asset committee and appointed members to the committee. In line with the current instruments of delegation from the CEO to the community asset committees, members are appointed for 2 years. The term of membership for all committee members of common staff end dates. Any member appointed to fill a casual vacancy will leave office at the original expiry date of the member they are replacing. Current membership term expires on the 20th of June. Community asset committees have notified council of changes to their membership following their annual general meetings, and the purpose of this report is for council to appoint the new nominated members and revoke the membership. I move council appoints the nominated members to the community asset committees and revokes the memberships of retiring as listed in the report. John Howard, Open State Community, Newstead, Camp Reserve, Muppet, Sutton Grange, Metcalfe Hall, and
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. We have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Pardon? Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
We always have to say congratulations and thank you very much to anyone who steps up to join the community asset committee. There's no money in it. It's quite a bit of inconvenience showing up for meetings at odd times, and you're running home or out in the garden or wherever. It's quite a job sometimes. But what's really exciting, really, even in this day and age, new people have put their hands up, even when we're all too busy to do an awful lot of things outside our circle. There are new people agreeing to come on board. So I'm very pleased to have these. Those who haven't got any new ones, I will have them to find some. And all the new members to my fellow councillors and say thanks and well done to those people who are.
Councillor Gardner.
Look, just to reiterate, I suppose what Councillor Henderson said, it's great to see the people putting their hand up and getting up to those people in the next 12 months.
Councillor Cordy.
I think I'd just like to acknowledge the retiring members. There's a lot of people that have contributed a huge amount of service for these asset committees. So I'd just pass on to extend council's thanks to all of them because they've done a great job, and it's a lot of work, and really appreciate the work they've done over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillor like to say something? We have a motion in front of us. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. And I'd like to reiterate that all those people who put their hand up and retired, thank you for your service, and all those new people who are being elected for that. Hope you enjoy it. And thank you once again for your support. Next item is 9.1.4, which is the appointment of councillors as representative to committees 2024. Councillor Maltby, could I have you introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider and determine who it wishes to appoint to various internal and external committees for the coming 12 months.
and I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Maltby.
Oh, sorry. I'm moving the recommendation.
Yeah, no, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McClure. Is there any opposition to this motion? Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, if you'd like to speak to your motion.
I just note that all councillors have put their hand up to serve on various committees that council is involved in, whether it's external or internal, which shows that as a team, we're out there working together and making sure that the Shire is in the right steps forward.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Councillor Lord.
Or just to reiterate that, I mean, I've certainly enjoyed the time that I've spent on committees such as the Camp Reserve Committee and home of my own committee on attending the meetings. I found them very informative and give you that extra connection to the ratepayers and people that are working hard on these committees. And so I think it's an important part of our work. Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors? No, all those in favour of the motion? Motion carried. The next motion, sorry, the next item is 9.2.1, which is the boundary road update. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce that, please?
Sorry, the purpose of this report is to provide an update and recommendation on potential reopening of Boundary Road, Taradale for public use. At the meeting of council on 16th of August last year, council adopted a notice of motion 2022-2003. The council officers commenced the process to reopen Boundary Road, Taradale for public use and provided further report on the completion process. This report details the correspondence received from the impacted property owners and the perspective of the community. From a broad community perspective, the reopening of boundary roads will reduce uncertainty for users regarding its status, concerns regarding potential for lock gates and stop interaction. So let's move now. The council notes the information and feedback from current licensed holders, adjacent property owners and the community, and request the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action to undertake the process required to reopen boundary roads.
Councillor Henderson, do I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Is this motion opposed? Okay, so Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to this motion?
It's been quite a lengthy process, as you know. It started last year. Moving through slowly. There has been consultation with the previous owner of the land. There's a lot, and then the new person who bought it last year, and then the other ones, because this road, being Boundary Road, is actually the boundary properties, and is in the boundary of the Shire. It is an old road that was fortuitously upgraded by the big roads when they were constructing the freeway, the bypass of Taradale, Malmesbury, onto Elphinstone. The trucks had to access a section of the road to the east of Taradale, and the easiest way to get them there was up this old road. So it's got a really firm base to the road. Which makes it still a long road. It's very scenic, especially on its northern section, and it has been used by walkers and cyclists. Very pleasant, quiet route from Taradale to Malmesbury. The previous owner of anyway, of the Western Park had fitted gates to the, obviously had an agricultural license to allow them to stop the graze there during drought times, probably when the grass out. Fitted gates, and then proceeded to lock them. So for quite a while, people new to the area or would just believe that it was no longer a public road. That's not the case, and the gates should never have been locked. However, even with unlocked codes, it leaves an uncertainty. So these are uncertainty to people below and quite remote from other properties. Calling in deeper people to check, not always feasible. Also, in emergency, you don't want any go. You're running fire. There will be smoke. You will have to stop to open the gate, and likelihood is that someone running to above you while your car is parked and then running from the lights too. That's obviously an extreme situation. But if there are gates, then it means cattle can be out on the road reserve, and that's not safe for people riding bikes or walking. So we feel that it is a public road and it's trying to return to the public because, as you heard from the principal of the primary school and from Tierney, very visible route from bike riding in the area along. It is a very popular road, has been in the past. And we have access road for people on a safe road.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not really, just say, I mean, councillor Henry summed it up perfectly, so I don't probably have any further to say. Motion.
Thank you. Any other councillor like to say anything to this item? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9.2.2, which is the Public Art Advisory Panel. Councillor Maltby, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you. Council is establishing an independent expert public art advisory panel to provide key advice on all stages of development and planning for public art. Following a robust selection process in line with the panel terms of reference, 6 community members are recommended for appointment based on their skills and experience in public art. In accordance with the adopted policy, this panel will be chaired by a councillor. And I'd like to move the council appoints Dan Mitchell, Lisa Merkeston, Gretchen Hillhouse, Horace Keegle, Nathan Edwards and Laura Jade to Council's Public Art Advisory Panel for initial 2-year period as per the public art policy.
Thank you, councillor Maltby, for that motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Is this motion opposed? Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, the skills of the people on that motion that I just moved, that 2 are local artists, 2 are local architects and or art curators, and 2 community representatives, and 1 councillor, which we've just approved me. And that's possibly because I've got some interest in the art via the art gallery. But we are taking a good step forward in recognising that public art is important, but it needs to be done properly and managed. I'm sure these people have got the experience that can help advise us. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to acknowledge the successful applicants for the Public Art Advisory Panel. Highly credentialed team of people, so I'm sure they're going to make very good decisions and recommendations to council. But I'd also like to acknowledge all the other people that expressed interest and appreciate people putting themselves out there for this very interesting art advisory panel. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Henderson.
I'd like to say it's been a very long time coming. I can remember a lot of issues to do with public art going up in places, and council did not have any say or policy to do with public art. They just do heritage constraints, and caused upset in the community in the past, because of course what is art, what is good art, what is bad art, well, in the eye of the beholder. But hopefully the beholder that we have, or the beholders that are in the advisory panel would have a good Catholic range of taste, and between them would be would be able to, between them, be good judges of what makes good public art, for very, especially when it's something to come to the local graffiti, which doesn't show no sign of abating. I think more we try and fight it, the more it will rise. So, yes, no, it's very good. I remember at a time when you seemed too far, but we've got our public art policy, and now we've got a public art advisory.
Councillor, any other councillor like to say something? Okay, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is Summerine Railway Precinct Master Plan. Councillor Neil, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the Castlemaine Railway Precinct Master Plan, to Council for adoption. The master plan was updated after considering the feedback on the draft master plan. The master plan sets out an aspirational long-term vision for land activation and improvements in and around the Castlemaine Railway Station Precinct. The master plan is based on 3 guiding principles. 1, stitching the precinct together. 2, creating and enhancing destinations. 3, rediscovering Barkers Creek. The master plan sets out a series of recommended projects relating to each of these principles. As the precinct is not owned by council, but by VicTrack and managed by the Department of Transport and Planning, council will primarily play a role in advocating to the landowner and land managers to implement the master plan's recommended projects over the long term. To support council and advocacy, the master plan includes an implementation plan to assist with the next steps in the development of the precinct. This includes further investigations, design and engagement required to deliver these recommendations with key stakeholders and specific delivery timeframes. The report also presents the Conservation Management Plan for the precinct. Council was successful in receiving funding from Heritage Victoria to complete the plan with support from the precinct's landowner VicTrack. And I will move that Council 1 adopts the Castlemaine Railway Precinct Master Plan 2023. 2, notes that implementation of the master plan's recommended projects will require council advocacy to state government departments and agencies. 3, notes the Castlemaine Railway Precinct Conservation Management Plan, August 2023.
Thank you, councillor Neil. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cording, thank you. Is this motion opposed? Thank you. Councillor Neil, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I was lucky enough to sit on the project advisory group for this project, and it was a great one to sit on. Obviously, the Castlemaine Railway Precinct has the train station. It also has one of our only kind of east-west connections across the train lines that you can go on foot. And there's also, you know, some existing businesses and kind of groups there. So on the panel, we had people like the Castlemaine Lions Club, the Castlemaine State Festival, the Castlemaine Girl Guides, the Castlemaine and Malvern Railway Preservation Society, which managed Victorian Goldfields Railway, and as well as some others, as well as the mill and representatives from a couple of other places. It was a really productive working group, and I think I've said this before because it was very focused on solutions rather than problems. And through kind of the plan, which was developed over quite a while and then went out for public consultation, we were able to come up with these 7 projects. These have been prioritised by the community. So we kind of asked them to select which projects should be priorities. And so these are in priority order. So project 1 is reconfiguring the station forecourt. If you go there and try and catch a train, it's a bit of a mess, especially for navigating as a pedestrian or if you have mobility issues. Providing a safe and accessible east-west crossing is project 2. So again, we've only kind of got about 3 crossings to get from the east, so town centre, up into the west. Last time we had the flash flooding event last year, all of those crossings were lost and the west was briefly landlocked. Project 3 is making it safer to move along Kennedy Street. Kennedy Street is that very long street that kind of goes along the railway. You know, many people use it to get down to the Mill Precinct area, to the pool, to the Botanical Gardens, to the hospital. As a pedestrian, you know, growing up with my mum and walking everywhere, it is the most boring street to walk along. I don't know why, I cannot tell you why, but walking along that street is more boring for me personally than many other streets. So I'm excited to make it safer and possibly even more interesting to move along that street. Upgrading Lions Park is project 4. So we've got, you know, a beautiful Lions Park at the entry to town, but there's at the entry to the station and then to the town, but there's not much going on there. It'd be lovely to have, you know, a place where families just getting off the train can have a picnic, or, you know, you can stop for a bit of a breather. Ecological restoration of the Hollow is project 5. So the Hollow is that big kind of hole, which is not super safe at the moment. You know, there's not a lot happening there in terms of conservation as well. So it'd be great to be able to revitalise that area. Number 6, project 6 is creating a cultural trail along Barkers Creek. And number 7 is improvements to Jingle Street Park. So these reflect the priorities of the community. So importantly, this is an aspirational document. We do not own or manage that land. So a lot of this will be to do with advocacy, but having this, this strategy done means that we can advocate better and use leverage better and try and line up, I guess, with state government priorities so we can get some of these things to happen. I was really excited when I first heard about this project because I feel like that area for a long time has been not as great as it could be, and especially with new additions like the mill, with new ownership at the old jail. Hopefully at some time in the not too distant future, we'll be able to enact the Camp Reserve Master Plan and make it a bit swisher as well. And it really will be a nice area. So we need to make it safer and more attractive, I guess, for people to traverse, especially visitors to town. So I'm excited about this and recommend it to my fellow councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, it's a fantastic opportunity to update or bring the railway precinct up to date. You've got to have a plan for success, and it's a great plan. As Councillor Anir mentioned, there's a step-by-step project plan, and I'd really just like to thank all of the contributors to the plan. It's really exciting, and I'm sure our advocacy will be well received by VicTrack and our local member for Bendigo West, Marie Edwards. She might be able to find some money to kick off a few of these projects. So well done, everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak on this motion? So we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. I just want to know there's been, even though it's, as Councillor Anir says, it's not really it's advocacy role. There's been a lot of work done in this, lots and lots of work, and some really good papers. It's what we need. So thank you. Next item is 9.3, the economy, which is 9.3.1, which is the planning application PA 093 2023 1E Rollings Road, Campbell's Creek. Councillor Henderson, could you introduce this one, please?
The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination in application 6 of variation of restriction on the title of 1E road. Specifically, the application is seeking to vary a building envelope for allow for the construction of carport in front of the existing garage. Carport does not require planning permission, but it is unable to be constructed due to restricted building envelope. The application has been referred to council for a decision as the plaintiff's officer recommendation to excuse the application.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm continuing. So the subject site is located in the township zone. By the overlays, the application is advertised, no objections were received. The application has been assessed and considered to be contrary to the purpose and decision guidelines of 1252. In relation to the state limited vehicle on property access. The application is being sent to council engineering team for objection to the application. Recommended that the application is refused. Notice of refused to grant to public premises in accordance with.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, okay, so the council will resolve to issue a notice of refusal to grant planning permit PA 093 section 23 for a variation to restrictions on building envelope at 1 E Rose Place, Castlemaine, on the following grounds. Proposed variation to an existing restriction building envelope does not meet the purpose and decision guidelines, clause 52. And clause 65.01, the plan contained in the planning explains the following reasons. Variations in existing envelope A will facilitate construction of a carport that will formalise parking of vehicles that intrude into the vehicle circulation space of the adjoining common properties access road. B will detrimentally affect vehicle usability, of traffic or the adjoining properties with access to the common property driveway, and C does not represent on the planning of the area.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McClure. Is this motion opposed? Councillor Gardner? Councillor Maltby? Any others? Okay. Councillor Corley, sorry. And Councillor Corley, okay. Okay, so, Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
You know, it seems very unfair. What's the carport? It's his land. Why not? Well, he can't at the moment because his building envelope doesn't include that area and he wants to build a structure. It's an awkward shape, it's a triangle shape. He wants to put the carport in there. However, we've already been shown a diagram that shows that any vehicle that parks within that carport fit in his land. The car itself will actually, or vehicle, which is getting bigger all the time, could actually, or will, like more likely will extend beyond his land where it's parked. So there's no, once you put the carport down, there's no longer any hope of actually raising the garage, running the door and parking inside the garage, which is built to take a vehicle into. So you will then be restricting them to parking in the carport and therefore necessarily sticking out into the common space. But probably more seriously, in the longer term, once the building envelope has been changed to include right to the boundary of the common turning space, in the future owner or future will of the current owner might be not to have a carport there, but to have a solid wall structure. Your kitchen, another garage, whatever. That would mean there'd be no space at all to park any car on the property. The owner would have to be in the common property, which is very small, and it would become almost impossible to turn the vehicle around in that space. It would have to be reversing out. I had a look at it, it's very low. So I think even though it seems unfair, come on, even like the carport, in this case, I think it's does not represent fair law for planning and
Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to your motion or you reserve your right to speak?
Reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yeah, look, briefly, I mean, this is a easy one. So I suppose for me, what it comes down to is that the applicant is seeking to increase his building envelope within his title. And I don't see anything particularly wrong with that. It's not like that he's looking to go into common areas. Obviously, he had received a planning permission approval prior to this for the subdivision. in terms of the car parking, I mean, it's still sort of, well, it's not known, but one, it will turn into, a building, as councillor Henderson has possibly indicated. And also that it hasn't stated that I can see that the garage doors won't be usable. So the stated, purpose is for a, carport. In terms of the vehicles getting in or out, I mean, I still, at the end of the day, the vehicle should be turning on what is someone's property. So I don't see why that is a justification. So this is probably why I support it. I mean, end day is seeking to extend the ability to build as for a carport at this point on his title. So that's why I support it. In the current motion. Right.
Thank you. Councillor Maltby.
I'll reserve.
Can't reserve your thoughts. You got to say something. Or don't speak.
That's what I said.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, councillor Gordon.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I have a couple of concerns, and one of the things is when you build, it's hard to get everything just right. And for that reason, I can understand the applicant wanting to make some changes to his dwelling. The other thing is, in an applicant objector meeting, the applicant explained to us the need for shading on the west end of the house, and I accept that. Similar to councillor Gardner, I don't accept the need for other vehicles turning to require access to the applicant's property. So, yeah, I'm a bit sympathetic to the applicant in terms of wanting to, correct an oversight in the construction of the dwelling. That's why I'm against the decision or the recommendation that's before us. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Corley. Any other councillors like to say something on this? Councillor McClure.
Can I ask a question of one of the officers, just a clarification? Is that possible? I thought I heard in previous discussions about this, that there was a requirement on the original permits that the landowner had to have the ability to drive out forward from the property, not reverse out. Is that right? Oh.
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll. So councillor, it is correct that to drive out of the subdivision, it is the preference to drive out in a forward direction out of the subdivision, which requires the opportunity for a vehicle who is driven into the subdivision in the forward direction to be able to turn around to 180 degrees. Hence why the common property area is required to be free from any parked vehicles to allow that to happen.
Probably not quite. I know in some instances, some permits are issued on the basis that when leaving a property, and I've had an instance, the car had to be travelling forward out of the property, so they had to reverse within the property and go out the gate forwards, not reverse out of the property. By that was the clarification I was seeking, but
so that's what's the preferred requirement for this subdivision, and that's why the common property has required the ability to turn at the end of the driveway to exit in a forward direction.
I guess that's my biggest concern with this. It's a very tight, small subdivision. There's not a lot of room in there. The drawing or the diagram that we were given shows a parked vehicle with its rear extruding from the carport. I just think at the moment cars can drive around and get into the garage that's existing now. I can't see how that's going to happen adequately, as Councillor Henderson said, with a couple of posts in the way. So I'm a little bit concerned that this whole corner of this subdivision is going to become a little bit constricted. The officers have done a lot of work, I think, in looking at this, and I'm happy to support their position on this, that it should be approved. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, sorry, Councillor McClure. So we have a motion in front of us which is to resolve to issue a notice of refusal. All those in favour of that motion, please indicate.
No.
So the motion in front of us is that council resolved to issue a notice of refusal for granting the planning permit.
Sorry, before, go on.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yes, you do, I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to pick up. Councillor's point that the owner should be allowed to do it on his title. If the home is your castle, go to the rest of your title, whatever, do what you want. But the whole point of it is that parking in the car park, in the carport in front of you will leave your car extending beyond your into the common property. You use that carport to park your car, which presumably is the purpose of a carport is to park behind. Your car, the vehicle will not fit entirely on your property and you'll be extending the road. Especially possible for vehicles on the other property and not regarding what happens in the future, which we aren't meant to consider the long-term use of that land, not just the common. That's
Okay, thank you. So all those in favour of the motion? Okay, all those against? Motion motion defeated. Which brings me to, is there an alternative motion? Councillor Gardner?
Yep, so an alternative recommendation that the council issue a planning permit associated with PA 093/2023 for the variation of a restrictive covenant at 1E Rosalie Place, Campbell Creek, subject to the following conditions. Compliance with Bill's plans. Once endorsed, the proposed variation to restrictive place on a plan of subdivision must not be altered or modified unless otherwise agreed in writing by the responsible authority. And permanent expiry, the permit will expire when one of the following circumstances applies. The plan of subdivision is not certified within 2 years date of the permit. The registration of the relevant state of subdivision is not completed within 5 years from the date of certification of plan of subdivision, and the responsible authority must extend the permit if a request is made in writing in accordance with section 69 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I have a motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy? Is there any opposition? Yes. Okay. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yep, certainly. So I suppose we just heard the arguments that we're flipping them. I look at the drawings and I can see he can get a car in there. So, and I still go back to it, this is his title. There's still boundary space all around, way around it, so it's not like a boundary. And I think, as I said before, I don't see how people can be turning around on his common property. So therefore, that's why I sort of put an alternative that we seek to give him his permit for what he has stated when the council Courtney picked up was really, it's a shade thing, which he overlooked. So that's why I'm supporting an alternative recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right to speak?
I reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak?
When I was speaking for or
because
You're speaking against it, eh?
so I just wondered if there was any more for it.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. I'm going to go to the opposition first.
Oh, okay. But I've said before, my view is it's an extremely tight little subdivision. It's common property. I have the same concerns as councillor Henderson does, that this is just going to create more mayhem in that corner of the driveway where there's 4 cars in there. I mean, it's going to be fairly tight now. I mean, it must be fairly tight now. And if you get a couple of cars parking in that carport, which it has the size and the ability to do that, it's going to be quite a constricted space. And like I say again, I support the officer's recommendation because I think they've considered the drivability of the driveway, the constrictions that are going to cause and potentially the blues down along the track that council officers are going to have to sort out with people parking across driveways. So for that reason, I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Hang
You're
opposed, is
I
it?
oppose.
Yes.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay. Councillor Henderson?
I'll turn my piece.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Any other councillors would like to speak to this motion? Councillor Corley, you have the right to reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, as I stated earlier, I'd like to see the applicant have a chance to fix up his design. And I don't accept that vehicles may not fit in the carport. He might have a small vehicle, or he might ride a scooter for that matter. So, alternate motion gets up. I wish him well with it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Corley. Okay, so we have a motion in place, which is the alternative. Oh,
No further.
thank you. So we have a motion in place, which is the alternative recommendation. You'll have in front of you. All those in favour of that motion? All those against? Motion carried.
The reason, please, Mayor.
Certainly. Okay, to the alternative recommendation, all those in favour? That's councillor Maltby, Cordy, Gardner, Driscoll, Anir, and all those opposed is councillor Henderson and councillor McClure. Thank you. Great debate. Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is item 9.3.2. Thank you. Thank you, Rosie. I'll be back shortly. Okay, so just note that obviously councillor Lanier has been a conflict, has left the room at 7:58. Next item, 9.3.2, planning application, PA 261 6 Watson Street, Castlemaine. Can I get councillor McClure to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable council to decide an application for the use and development of land at 6 Watson Street, Castlemaine for a dwelling. The application has been referred to council for a decision because the council officer recommendation is to refuse the application. Subject site is located within a farming zone pursuant to the Mount Alexander planning scheme. The site is not affected by any overlays. This application is referred to the relevant authorities and advertised to neighbouring properties. The development received consent from authorities and did not receive any objections. I'm happy to move the recommendation as printed, but council officers resolve to issue a notice of refusal.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Henderson. Sorry. So I have a motion from councillor McClure. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Thank you. Do I have any opposition? Councillor Maltby and councillor Cordy. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I've never really changed my view on quite a number of these applications where we've had people have tried to build within farm zones where it's not allowed under our planning scheme, and I'm not convinced that we should change my view in this context either. I understand that people think that it's right up against the residential area, but I guess that's not the issue, it's zoned farming. And the officers have put up, in my view, quite a considerable case. Again, urge councillors to think about what the use and the purpose of the farming zone is. It's to provide land for agriculture and to encourage the retention of productive agricultural land, which I think it can be. Somebody said it's not being used as farming at the moment, but it doesn't mean it can't be used for some type of farming if the current owner doesn't wish to do that. To ensure that non-agricultural uses, including dwellings, do not adversely affect the use of the land for agriculture, to encourage the retention of employment, population, support rural communities, to encourage use and development of the land based on comprehensive and suitable sustainable land development practices, and provide for the use and development of the land for specific purposes identified in the schedule of the zone. I think if council is going to consider this application, then it will open up this particular area for further applications for residential development. I'm urging councillors to consider that council look at doing a strategy, a structure plan on this area before there's any consideration of any future development. It will change that it's right up against residential area and probably will eventually become residential land, but it is not residential land at the moment, and there needs to be a lot of work done within council before we consider allowing residential development in a farm zone, which is what it is. So I urge councillors not to support it in this or any other instances where we're looking at reducing the available farmland in our shire. And if we are going to consider it, then we consider doing quite a bit of work, such as structure planning work or strategy work on these areas before we consider changing the ability of people to build one house and then another house and then another house for the research. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right? Thank you. Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Some of the things Councillor McClure has said is correct, that it is adjoining the current residential zone that was a farming zone only 30 years ago. The total size of the land that they want to take 3.12 hectares off is only about 120 acres. And it isn't being farmed. And long term, again, it is the place that will become residential after we have done our rural living strategy and undertaken ways of how we let development happen. It's not as though they're asking for a quarter acre or an acre, telling us that we're going to put it on 8 acres, roughly. The other thing, and that's why this rural living strategy needs to be done quickly, there's many areas throughout the whole shire that are zoned farming that shouldn't be. And it's legacies from the previous shire councils that formed Mount Alexander Shire. You know, I can take you to Guildford and show you a 40-acre allotment. You can't farm, and you could put 4 10-acre allotments there and not ruin the amenity of the area. That's why I'm voting against it. And should this get defeated, I would move an alternative.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors like to speak on this motion? No. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, there's been a bit of discussion about the farm. Well, my background is I am a farmer, and the site in its present form is not a viable farm. Hasn't been farmed. Nobody's made a living there probably in the last 50 years. The other point is the applicant has plenty of land and requires an extra dwelling. The owner has plenty of land and requires an extra dwelling for one of his children. He's been a good the applicant's been a good servant of our community for many years and has done a fantastic job in the community. And I feel given the land holding he's got there, he should be able to put the extra dwelling on. And, you know, to make that a viable farm in that area, you know, you could put a piggery there or you could put a chook farm there, but I'm sure the residents of Castlemate wouldn't like that. And it's really more of a rural living area than farming zone. So yeah, I'll support an alternate motion to let them actually build the extra dwelling that they want. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Gardner?
Yep, I'm actually speaking in favour of the motion. And I think for me, whilst I don't disagree with councillor Cordy and councillor Maltby, I think councillor Bob Maltby hit it on the head when he said, this is probably one of many fragmented parts. Yes, it is. However, I think really supporting what councillor Flora said, that the owner has, I think it's 17. She couldn't recall how many, could be up to 20 titles on these properties. And this will become a subdevelopment by stealth with no contributions made to council and for infrastructure. And really, it really does require an infrastructure plan over it if that's what it's going to come down to, because it'll be council who's going to cop it for not having roads and footpaths in place. So for me, if the applicant needs to go away and do a proper subdevelopment and not try and do one by stealth. So that's why I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Gardner. Councillor Henderson, you have a right to reply.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, thank you for all those comments. I would not like to think we were making a decision based on the contribution to the community of the applicants, which is definitely not in doubt. However, does that mean people who have not contributed to the community, in fact, might be like the unsavoury characters or kept themselves should not get planning permits? I don't think so. I think it has to be judged according to planning rules. I agree, it's a very sensitive area. Maybe no one's made anything for it because to buy it. When not a viable farm back then, they were born in the late 60s, early 70s. However, these places can generate an income. Many places in our shire and other similar shires are run as farms, hard income. And generate part of the family's means. So to say that it should be abandoned because it's not a viable farm, I don't think is necessarily a good argument. And it certainly is zone farming. I agree, it's right on the border, it's a hard border with one of our new areas of growth, Mackenzie Hill. And in many ways, you say, obviously one day, in the near future, it will be either residential or a mix of residential and rural residential. But exactly, as Councillor Gardner said, this must be done in an orderly fashion. And we've already got multiple titles on it. It would be a very bad outcome for the child if we had development by itself. This house, that generates 2 houses. Maybe the current owners would be quite happy with that. However, time moves on, generations move on. Next thing you know, we need a bit more income, or we've got more family, we need more houses. You've already got precedent. The house that's there is the house that's allowed because of the size of the land. Anything more, we're tipping the balance. So I think we really have to take a stand here. Threat for the applicant who has served the community very well. I do something, but say no. In this circumstance, no. There has to be a stand to say the officer's recommendation and motion has moved.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor McClure, you have a right to reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, I think Stephen I do apologise. Councillor Gardner and Councillor Henderson have hit the nail on the head. It is development itself. I mean, yes, in the future, if it's not already a piece of valuable piece of land, there's ability for the owner now to do some work, to have the place either rezoned or into real living lots or whatever, a structure plan or any study, council planning study the council might choose to do. But I urge councillors to say that that work needs to be done first before we consider allowing these small developments to happen. Otherwise, it's going to be ad hoc development and it's not a good outcome for the future of that area. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lord. Okay, we have a motion in front of us, which is the council resolved to issue a notice of refusal. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? So that motion's and I'll have a casting vote, of which I'm for against the motion. So,
Call for a division, please, sir.
yes, certainly. So all those in favour of the motion is councillor McClure, councillor Henderson and councillor Gardner. All those against the motion is councillor Maltby, councillor Cordy and councillor Driscoll and against the motion. Thank you. Do I have an alternative motion? Councillor Maltby.
And I move that in relation to PA 261/2022 6 Watson Street, Castlemaine, that this matter be deferred until the February 2024 meeting of council to allow officers to prepare recommendations to support the issuing of a permit.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy.
Can I do an amendment?
Yep.
I'd like to amend that in that it includes the development of a permit condition that any future development is subject to a contribution to council. Come up with some words.
That could be what comes out of this recommendation. But if this is passed,
But I don't want it in there. That there would be a condition that would consider. On the title, that if there's on titles, further development, contribution to made to council. In structure purposes.
Oh. So I have a motion in front of me, the alternative motion to move to defer it till 2024. I have a mover and I have a seconder. All those in favour? Sorry.
Just the mover on the secondary accept.
Oh, yeah. Does the mover or the seconder accept councillor Gardner's amendment?
not as such. I can see what he's saying, and I would suggest that that report may present items like that.
Okay, so you won't accept it?
So, Dan, Chris Council, and you just make a comment.
Yep.
Director.
Sorry.
Director Neer?
Thank you,
Clarify something?
Thank you, Mayor Driscoll. We need to ensure that if you place any restriction on the title of land, that it does not oppose the, it does not restrict the ability to enact the conditions of land scheme. So in your suggestion, it would need to be considered that by placing such a requirement on the title, it would not then restrict the application of what's allowable under the land scheme. And this could be one issue that would need to be explored. So while I understand the intent of what you're seeking, we need to make sure that we're not restricting it or what's allowable. And that will be something that will need to be explored in the application of conditions.
Okay, so.
And secondly, we also don't have a structure plan or a structure plan which would set out what their contribution would be made for, and how council would keep that contribution on behalf of the community for that area for to be used. So that would require investigation, that would require development of a plan or action, that the funds that council would receive and how council would then apply those funds for the community. So those issues would need to be explored by council. It may be that we bring this back to a briefing.
Okay, so we have a mover with the alternative motion, and the mover has not accepted the amendment, so I won't allow that. So the vote.
The proposed amendment would be that consideration be given to, in the issuing of the permit, consideration be given to, I don't know, Michael, what's the word, subdivision?
Consideration be given in the preparation.
Michael Knight not alluded in any way in this, and he's been a good observer.
Just a point of order, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Gordon.
I would note that we already have policies in place covering developer contributions. So I think that's a given, that's going to come into play anyway. So I don't see that it's necessary to amend this.
We don't have, we don't have.
Cease the debate, please. So I want to go back to your amendment. Councillor Gardner, what is your amendment?
That consideration be given for a contribution towards future infrastructure.
Do I have a second? A second of that?
I'll second it for the debate, but I don't understand how it might be action, that's all, Steve, but I'll second it, so we can have it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, we're going to vote on that amendment. So I have a mover, which is Stephen, it's Councillor Gardner, and a seconder, Councillor McClure. You want to speak to that motion, please, Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, be patient. Look, I mean, I'm going back to, I mean, this is subdivision by stealth. So, and that's why I'm seeking to have this, a clause put in that, when consideration be given that they contribute to, put aside like a bond or something, and it, put aside for future infrastructure roads, footpaths that will be needed in this area. And there is no current, policy that would force them to do that in the future, in that particular area. So my alternative or amendment to your motion is really make sure that, when and if the other 20 odd lots go ahead, that there is a contribution to the required infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClure?
Reserve.
You can reserve. Is there any opposition to that motion? Councillor Maltby? Councillor Gordon? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak?
Yeah, you can't put something there that may happen in life. And that's what you're saying, Councillor Gardner. You're saying that you believe they're going to cut the other 120 acres up or whatever over time. Now that, if the zoning is altered as per the strategy that we're doing, that is a different issue. But to put a condition on a proposed planning permit, we mightn't approve the planning permit in February. We're asking the officers to show us what they would recommend if a permit was to be issued to build this one house on approximately 8 acres. You can't say, but by the way, you're going to put up a bond for the roads to be made in 50 years' time, because that's maybe when the rest of the 100 acres gets developed. Who knows?
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy?
It just seems to me, Mayor, that the alteration proposed or the addition proposed is going way beyond the original motion. So I don't think we we should accept it for that reason. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Any other councillors like to say something on the amendment? No? Councillor McClure, you have a right to reply.
And I guess I do support councillor Gardner's motion or amendment to the motion, principally because it talks to the belief that there should be a lot of work done on this permit before one is issued in terms of structure planning. And out of structure planning comes development contributions. And out of structure planning becomes proper requirements for roads and footpaths and everything else that's required in a small community. And down along the track, believe me, that this probably will, because it's right on the edge, the boundary of an existing residential complex, that it will become a future residential community. Now, whether it's a rural living community or high density residential, it'll be one or the other, and it needs to be properly planned. And that includes making sure that any developer, whether it's one lot, 12 lots or 20 lots or 50 lots, they contribute to the infrastructure that's needed in that part of the country. I don't believe there's too much infrastructure there now, so I totally understand what Councillor Gardner is getting to, that all these developers need to contribute fairly to the infrastructure requirements around that area. So I support Councillor Gardner's amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Councillor Gardner, you have a right to reply.
No, that's it, I think.
Okay, so
It is everyone else.
okay, so we're voting on this amendment. So I have a mover of Councillor Gardner and the seconder of Councillor McClure. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. And all those against? And I've got my casting vote against the amendment. That didn't get carried. So back to the alternative motion, which is Councillor Maltby, which is move that the matter be deferred until the February 2024 meeting of council to allow officers to prepare recommendations to support the issue of a permit, which Councillor Maltby moved and Councillor Cordy seconded. Is there any opposition to that motion? Yes, okay. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Well, just to repeat what I said when I moved it, and long term, the planning department will look at future development when it is that applied for and say that there may need to be a road made, and that will be part of the condition. But you can't do that right now because they're only asking for one permit on approximately 8 acres. Nobody's got a crystal ball. We all agree possibly that that is a good area for development of rural living or residential, but certainly not good farming land. So that's why I've moved that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right to speak?
Reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to that motion? Councillor Gardner?
Well, I'm speaking against.
Against that motion.
Yeah, and I just make a point, Bill, that this is a councillor-led motion and the officers have already assessed, so they're not actually going to be going away and doing more assessments. What they will be doing is preparing a bunch of conditions to support your request to approve. So that's all I'd say.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, Councillor Cordy, your right to reply.
I think we've covered everything there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, your right to reply.
Look, it's been great debate about the matter, and as I say, come February, some of us may have changed our mind when the recommendations come forward.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion in front of us, and I'll just repeat that motion again, that this motion is moved that this matter be deferred until the February 2024 meeting of council to allow officers to prepare recommendations to support the issuing of a permit. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hands. All those against? And once again, use my casting vote or to support the motion. Which means that this alternative motion, which I just read out, is supported. Certainly. All those in favour of this motion, please raise your hand, which is Councillor Maltby, Cordy and Driscoll. And the Mayor is using his casting vote for that. And all those opposed is Councillor Gardner, McClure and Henderson. Wonderful, thank you, great debate. Can we get Councillor Anir in, please? All right, democracy in motion. Councillor Anir, the vote was, the vote that got up was that the move that the matter be deferred until the February 2024 meeting of council to allow officers to prepare recommendations to support the issuing period. So thank you once again for everybody. Next item is 9.3.3, which is the finance report. Councillor Cordy, could I get you to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the finance report for the quarter ended 30 September 2023. This report was presented to the Audit and Risk Committee at its November 2023 meeting. And I would move the recommendation that Council notes the 23-24 finance report, quarter one, for the 3-month period to 30th September 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Maltby, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to second it? Is there any opposition to this? No, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, we've got the finance report and it indicates that council is on track financially and going along quite well. I'd like to commend our finance team for putting together the report. I'd recommend that to anybody interested in finance matters because it's got a lot of information there. I'd just like to note there the projects that we've got in train at the moment. Capital Works is 5.82 million currently on order, which includes the Bill Woodford recreation, female friendly rooms. We've got major plant purchases, we've got hook lift truck and bins. We've got the carryover funding there of stage 2 of Foggity's Gap, which is about to start. We've got Bill Woodford oval sports lighting. We've got Castlemaine and Campbell's Creek flood levy banks. Finally, we're doing something in that space. We've got Taradale youth space, Parkwalk Recreation Reserve, floodlighting design and construction, Diamond Gully Roads intersection. We've got some vehicle replacement. So there's some really exciting projects in the pipeline. Council continues to manage, council with the staff that we've got continue to manage the finances in a very robust and sound manner. And I'd just like to acknowledge the work of our finance team in putting the report together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby.
No, I'm fine.
Fine, okay, thank you. Any other councillors like to speak on this motion? No? No, okay, so we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. I'm going to continue on if that's okay with everybody. It's been 2 hours. Okay, 9.3.4 Annual Plan Progress Report. Councillor Gardner, could I get you to introduce this one, please?
Certainly. This report provides an update on the status and the progress of projects in the 2023-24 annual plan to the end of September 2023. And I would recommend that the council notes the annual plan progress, Q1.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I have a motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Is there any opposition? No. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, obviously, this is part of sort of, public accountability and reporting we do to our local community. It's our, report against our annual plan. And, it is noted this is the first quarter of that plan up to, September. So in the plan, there are many, projects that have been identified. And I think it's interesting that people need to note at this point, which will be around about 25%, which most of them are, and or some are even 90 to 100. So that's great achievement and progress by council to date. I think Councillor already sort of mentioned some of them, Bullings Gap Road. Some of the other projects, improvements for Maysville, Woodhall, and then there's quite a number of other projects, and we're all above, and about, there's a few below 25%, the majority way above, so that's good progress.
Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, for those who did the first quarter, which only brings us up to December. Obviously, these things get together, and in the time elapsed, and we see that quite a few items are left to be completed, which is terrific. And I can see that the volunteers for Low Level Bridge is still sitting there in the plan for this year. So I'm excited about that. You say to complete it. Great work coming in there and
Councillor Henderson. Any other councillors like to speak on this? No, okay, so we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is 9.3.5, scheduled meeting of council for 2024. Councillor Cordy, could I get you to introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. At or before the last meeting of each calendar year, council must fix the date, time and place of all scheduled meetings of council for the following calendar year. The schedule of meetings of council must be posted on the council website and be available from council's customer service centres. And I would make the recommendation as printed. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor McClure? Is there any opposition to this motion? Sorry. Thank you. Councillor Cordy, could you please speak to your motion?
I think it's great that we've got a schedule of meetings for next year and look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. No. Yes, yeah, thank you. So any other council want to say something? Councillor Henderson's noting that there is an election in that time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to say something? No, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion? All those against? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is 9.3.6, which is the election period policy. Councillor Anir, would you like to introduce this, please?
The purpose of this report is to recommend adoption of the election period policy in December 2023. The Local Government Act 2020 requires council to adopt an election period policy, which is included in its governance rules. I will move the motion that council adopts the election period policy December 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Anir. Any seconder to that motion? Councillor Henderson. Any opposition? Okay, councillor Neer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So this policy has been developed in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 to ensure the Mount Alexander Shire Council elections are conducted in a manner that is equitable, fair and equitable, and are publicly perceived as such. The election period or caretaker period for the general election 2024 commences at midday, Tuesday, 24th of September 2024, and continues until 6 p.m. Saturday, 26th of October 2024, a period of 32 days. The policy basically outlines how we will, how we will behave as councillors who may or may not be running for re-election, and making sure that we don't use our position as a councillor to, I guess, further our interest as a candidate, as well as what we can and can't make decisions on during the election period. So under the new Local Government Act 2020, there are a bunch of things that we cannot make decisions on during caretaker period, and these are basically things that would put the next council, I guess, in a bad, in a spot that might be a bit unfair. So only a few things have been changed just to get us in line with the Local Government Act 2020 and to make sure that we are handling that well, because next year is an election year.
Thank you, councillor Neer. Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, thank you, James, and my fellow councillors who have been on before will know what a sensitive time it is, from late September up to election morning, and how our government staff will be advising us. And we do have to watch out things that we quite innocently think we do or say or can, suddenly better not. So it might be considered to be electioneering. Yeah. Something detrimental to the future. It is time, and I recommend that all of this document, and the pillar council and start reading it pretty soon.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Any other councillors like to speak on this motion? No? All those in favour of the motion? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 9.3.7, which is the audit and risk annual report, 1st of January 23 to 30th of June 23. Councillor Maltby, could I get you to introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This report provides a summary of the work undertaken by Council's Audit and Risk Committee for the period 1st of January 2023 to the 30th of June 2023. And I'll move the council notes the contents of this biannual report on the work of the Audit and Risk Committee for that period.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition? No opposition. Thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Biannually, the committee provides a report to council on the works that they've done and checking audits and risk management and environmental control and compliance management, etc. And it's available printed. And the Audit and Risk Committee do a very good job, and it's an important part of the council.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, the Audit and Risk Committee does do a great job, and I'd like to acknowledge the contribution of Nicole Fox, current chair. She's finishing up in the new year. She's done her three terms, and we've got a replacement coming along, but she's done a fantastic job, and it's been a pleasure to work with her. I'd also acknowledge all of the members of Audit Risk Committee and our staff that support them. Keep up the great work. Terrific result. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cordy. Any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Those in favour of the motion? Thank you. Yes, a motion carried. Sorry. As you all know, I sit on the Audit and Risk and have for a number of years, and I feel very comfortable with the members and the third line of defence that the item 10 is the delegates report. apart from the CEO and myself, is there any other councillors who'd like to do a delegate? Councillor Anir, if you'd like to shoot off, if that's okay with you.
So just a few things that I've done in the last month, along with a few of us, attended the launch of our Disability Inclusion Action Plan. It was launched a community celebration for the International Day of People with Disability. And I would like to really thank Director Knight, who launched it, and as well as her team, particularly Sarah Grady, for all the hard work they put into that document. This is our first standalone Disability Inclusion Action Plan. It was formed with massive consultation by community members who live with a disability, care for people with a disability, or work with people with a disability. It was a really great day as well, outside of the launch of the plan. And it was just great to see so many community members who do live with disability, whatever it may be, feeling like they could just be out and about and have a good time, and felt safe and included. So that was really lovely. A bunch of us also attended the Castlemaine Secondary College Awards ceremony. I always think it's really special to see our young people getting celebrated for their achievements. I think young people a lot of the time really cop it from particularly older people who focus on maybe some of the more antisocial behaviours that some young people have. Mostly, I have to say, I spend a lot of time hanging out with young people, and most of them are incredible. They have really interesting ways of thinking about the world, and I think they're in a much better position than even my generation was in terms of how involved they want to be with the world and what they want to change. I got to speak to a few of the young people who'd won awards. They were really chuffed. I think it was a really lovely thing for us to be a part of, and it was great to see so many of our young people being celebrated. I went along to the Dalkaya Health AGM last week. It was a very short meeting, but they packed a lot in. So in the span of about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, if that, they launched their Reconciliation Action Plan, their Strategic Plan 23 to 26, and they introduced their new visual branding. It all looks pretty positive. You know, I know that there's been some, you know, as when any organisations amalgamate, there is a transition period. It looks like they're really getting their ducks in a row. Their Reconciliation Action Plan is really solid. Their strategic plan looks good. Their new visual branding, I don't know, I'm not much of a logo person, so it doesn't really bother me either way, but you know, new can be really good, and I think it probably speaks to what they're trying to stand for a lot more. With Director Knight, I also attended the Goldfields Library Corporation AGM and board meeting. I was thrilled to put my hand up to be chair of the board for the next year. I've been sitting on that board since I started on council, so just 3 years. And it's been a really, really incredible experience. I've met some really great people, and I felt like I had the confidence and the know-how after being there for a year to put my hand up to be chair of that board. Already been invited along to speak to all the early years staff in January, which I will, of course, be thrilled to do. And I will begin by reading my favourite picture storybook, Six Dinner Sid, which is an oldie but a goodie. Just like to remind everyone that our community Christmas lunch will be happening on Christmas Day at the Town Hall, 12:30 to 2. You can book through Castlemaine Community House. So far, there are 215 people booked in on the day. This is obviously a collaborative event, and I know that everybody is very thankful for all the support that council has been able to give them in that space, really ensuring that people, and I mean, one of the core reasons that Community Christmas Lunch has started is because a lot of people spend the holidays alone, and it can be a really bad time if you're feeling lonely, if you don't have strong connections. I go every second year when I don't have my kids, and it is just a really joyous day. So I'm really looking forward to it this year. Lastly, I just wanted to speak for a minute about a really powerful event that I attended last week in Melbourne. It was the MAB's Free from Violence Local Government Forum. Its theme was celebrating progress and empowering change. And it was it was packed. It was fully booked out, just a huge room full of people. During the forum, we heard from the Minister for Prevention of Family Violence, Vicky Ward. We also heard from Antoinette Braybrook, who is the CEO of JIRA. which is an organisation that works with Aboriginal women and children who have experienced family violence. And we heard from Serena McDuff from Respect Victoria, who spoke about this year's 16 Days of Activism campaign, which is just finished. In her opening speech, she specifically mentioned the hard work of Mount Alexander Shire, and we featured heavily in their promotional video as well. So that's what we did. Please pass that on to the team. There are also panels showcasing case studies from selected councils and discussions around safe and inclusive communities and leadership for primary prevention. A lot of the bigger councils have an officer who sits in this role as their job. Their whole role is a prevention against violence kind of officer or a child safety officer. So I had lots of really great chats. I would say though that the most powerful bit of the whole day was the keynote speaker. It was Grace Tame, who was named Australian of the Year in 2021 for her advocacy for survivors of sexual assault, particularly children and young people. If you don't know her story, beginning at age 15, she was groomed and sexually assaulted by her 58-year-old maths teacher, who was eventually found guilty and imprisoned for his crimes. I've only seen Grace speak before, kind of through a screen. Seeing her speak in person, she's a very, very powerful speaker. She spoke very openly and very fiercely about her experiences. It was really, really, really hard to listen to at times, and especially in a room full of what was primarily women, many of whom would have statistically experienced sexual assault or gender-based violence themselves. But as Grace said, her story needs to be listened to, and people who are experiencing violence, their stories need to be listened to until things start changing. I learned a lot of statistics that day that really didn't make me feel too good, honestly, around the numbers of women who are still experiencing sexual and physical violence. Overwhelmingly, this violence is perpetrated by men, and most of the time it is perpetrated by a domestic partner or a family member, with many incidents occurring before the age of 18. First Nations women, women living with a disability, young women, women experiencing financial hardship or housing instability, and women from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds are all at higher risk of experiencing violence. So it was really sobering, honestly. It was a really sobering day in many ways, but there was hope there too, because loud and clear the message that I got was that there is a big role for local government to play in our communities in helping to prevent violence against anyone in our communities. And I know that we are doing stuff, but I would really love to see this council do more in this space, because the statistics that I heard, and I think really powerfully, we need to remember that those statistics aren't just numbers, they're people whose lives have been changed by what has happened to them. Many people living in our shire will have experienced things like this, and I would love for our council to do more. So that was a big takeaway from me. Sorry to bring down the mood a bit, but it was really important and I wanted to share that. So thank you.
Councillor, and congratulations on your new chair role. CEO.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I indulge, just first of all, councillors, can I just say thank you to you all for, on behalf of all the staff, for the year that you've put in. Yet again, we ask you to make so many difficult questions about such a wide range of matters, and we really appreciate that you always do that. You consider that in a respectful way to us, and always a thoughtful way about the community. And just really want to say thank you to you all for, again, the enormous amount of work that you've gone through around this table in the last 12 months. Can I also say thank you to this extraordinary executive team of Michael and Lisa. You know how good they are. They are exceptional at what they do, and they lead brilliant teams as well. And so a very big thank you to both of you, and also to all of the staff in the organisation, I'm sure on your behalf as well, who do just a brilliant job every single day for this community. And I just can't tell you how proud I am of our whole staff. So sorry for that indulgence there, but I just wanted to say that as the last meeting of the year. A couple of points on our usual list of meetings that we've been to since the last council meeting in November that I wanted to pick out. One of them relates very well with Deputy Mayor Anir's last story there, where we had Dr. Nikki Vincent, who is the Public Sector Gender Equality Commissioner, come and speak to quite a few staff in the town hall, which was it was before the end of the 16 days of activism, and so it was just terrific timing from that point of view. And of course, we all know that one of the really important components to getting rid of gender-based violence is having gender equality throughout our community and throughout our organisations. It was terrific to have her there to tell not only her story, but also some of the things that are going on throughout our state that give you a bit of hope that we are making progress, even though there's a lot more to do. The thing that was particularly great for us, I thought, was in addition to the work that Deputy Mayor Anir's just mentioned that we're doing out into the community, was that she made a comment that she wished that all other government departments were doing as well as what Mount Alexander Shire is inside our organisation. And I don't for a minute pretend that means we've finished and that we don't need to keep doing more, but it was lovely to hear that she is recognising what we're achieving inside of our organisation for our people as well. So that was a terrific gesture of her to come and visit us and to speak with us and show that appreciation for the work that's happening here as well. Just two more I wanted to mention, and this, as was discussed by Councillor Henderson tonight, and also many of you, the contribution that we get from volunteers through our community asset committees is absolutely critical. Likewise, to us being able to keep up doing what the community wants us to do in those assets. Likewise, if we didn't have about 50 volunteers, I think it is, in our visitor information centres, they wouldn't be doing anything like what we're currently able to do for not only every visitor that comes in and visits them to help them find their way around our great shire, but also even locals to know more about what's going on here and how they can get out and enjoy more of our shire as well. We had Ed Butler and his team had a dinner last week to say thank you, basically, to the 50-something volunteers, and we had about 40 of them turn up. It was just a beautiful night to get to stop and say, we really appreciate what you do. So it was a great initiative of that team yet again to do that. The last one I wanted to mention was we had another really exciting meeting with Haven Home Safe recently, and Director Anir and planning staff into that meeting, as well as myself and Claire Richards, the housing solutions broker, talking about how do we get Templeton Street progressed as you wanted to, developing both of those sites. Pretty exciting discussions there about, right, what are we going to do? We've got some opportunities at the state level and the federal level in grant funds that are coming out very soon. How do we get ourselves ready for that? Are we committed to this together? Are we going to get it done? Strong answer, yes, we are, and we're going to work really hard to get some very strong grant applications in the next few months. They probably won't roll out until April-ish before we have to put something in, but we're going to do all that we need to do to be able to put in some really strong grant applications to try to get the housing that you in principle approved on those two sites in front of government and funding.
Awesome, thank you. Just a couple I want to touch on is with my report is I attended the meeting with project managers and a couple of other meetings with the World Heritage Bid, which I think it's going to take a while, 2 years, like 2027, but if it gets up and we're successful, 15 local governments involved in that, it's going to be really good from a business perspective, tourism perspective. We're going to need 4,500 new accommodations. So it's just going to be really, really good, and other sites that have been considered for World Heritage have done really well around the world. So that was really, I mean, there's a lot of work to go involved with it, but if we can pull off, it's fantastic, in my opinion. As a new mayor, I had the mayoral welcome induction with the MAV, which was really sobering from our perspective. Like, just if you look at tonight where we had that debate, we had opposite sides, but we did it in a respectful manner and not a heated manner. And so I want to thank all councillors and staff in terms of the way we treat each other. some of the stories that I heard during that day was, you know, there's been 65 councillors resign. There's been, you know, 6 in administration, 8 or 9 in monitoring. We're doing a great job. So I want you all to, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's great to disagree. I get that, but we do them in a good way. So I think if we can continue that, that's a really good thing. Just a couple of things. I went to the Muckleford Hall Committee AGM, the Clydesdale Gandroid Franklin Ford Community AGM Planning Forum, and I officiated the Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail AGM. Attended the Rotary Truck Show, which was a great success, and attended the Newstead Arts Hub 8th birthday party a couple of weeks ago, which was great. And I actually had a board meeting at Workspace last Thursday, and we had a site visit. It's finished. I think we get a certificate of occupancy in the new year. There's going to be 6 new food kitchens with Eddie Street, sorry, yes. So it's all done. We've got 2 buildings there. It looks great. It's going to be a fabulous spot. And, you know, as we all know, council's a wonderful thing for the community with Workspace, obviously. I'll organise a site visit there, but it's going to be great. So that's a good thing. Nothing else from me. I've got no notices of motion, no urgent special business, no confidential items. I just want everyone to have a safe and Merry Christmas, and thank you everybody for all your support. Meeting closed.